Are we really going to record an episode right now?
Wait, what episode are we on? أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم
Bismillah wa salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. Amma ba'd. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back, guys, to another episode. Today, our hosts are a little bit different. It's me, and I'm joined by popular demand again, Lina. Lina, you want to give salam?
Assalamu alaikum, everyone.
And today, we're going to be talking about a topic that I think a lot of us will be able to relate to. So we're going to talk about what does it mean to be a stranger, or just in general, being a stranger in the scope of Islam and like in the world that we live in today. So Nina's going to start us off, inshallah, with a beautiful hadith.
So the hadith goes, Islam began as something strange and will go back to being strange, so glad tidings to the strangers. So the first time I heard this hadith was at a Miftah Institute event in Michigan. And Dr. Haifa Yunus was talking about it. She was saying how she was getting on the plane and then she felt like, kind of uncomfortable because she just kind of felt out of place. She's a hijabi, probably the only hijabi in the airport boarding the plane.
She probably got a random security check.
Yeah, literally.
In the airport.
And so when she got these stares and whatnot, she remembered this hadith about being a stranger, and then she just felt like at ease because we are all, like us Muslimin, like this dunya, we're going to be strangers too. We're going to be strangers in society. Like no matter like how we act, how we dress, like we're strangers regardless because of like how our world is today. And the hadith, like whenever you remember it, it just really it puts you at ease because you want to be that stranger. If you feel like a stranger, like that's okay, because that's actually how you're supposed to feel. Allah tells you in this hadith, like you're supposed to feel like a stranger because you are not in this world for a long time. There's a hadith also that goes where that you should live in this dunya as if you're a traveler. It goes, be in this world as if you're a stranger or a traveler along a path. So you're not here for long, and if you feel like a stranger, like that's how you're supposed to be feeling. You're not supposed to be feeling like you're at ease and whatever, because at the end of the day, this whole dunya is about trials and tribulations. And if you embrace being a stranger and you look at the bigger picture, the akhirah, where like you're gonna get your glad tidings. And Amir, if you want to explain what the glad tidings are from the hadith, what that means.
So the hadith that Lina mentioned was I'll say in Arabic for anyone who wants to hear it in Arabic, but it says بدأ الإسلام غريبة فسيعود غريبة فطوبى للغرباء. So it says, like Lina was saying, that Islam began as something that was strange, and it's going to go back to being something that was strange. Fatuba, which we translate as glad tidings, but they say that Fatuba is actually a name of one of the trees in paradise. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, like, when you're staying firm on this path, when you're going to be a stranger, because you're going to be a stranger, like you're embracing the Deen of Islam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling you, you're going to get glad tidings of a paradise. And because being a stranger, it's not just like you're embracing Islam, but we're going to talk about there's a lot of hardship and there's a lot of other amazing characteristics that come with embracing strangeness. And before we continue, Lee and I are sitting outside, so there are going to be some like weird noises in the background, but it's more of like a fresh air vibe. So inshallah, like ignore any of the background noises. They're a little bit extra, but it's okay, inshallah. So okay, so to like kind of like dissect the hadith, so Islam began as something strange. So when Islam was first brought to the people, it was something taboo. Like people were worshipping idols. They had multiple gods, and when Muhammad ﷺ said that there's only one God but God, and to only worship Him, like it was strange to the people. Like they were confused. They were like, this is like not normal. It's not the normal thing we're supposed to be doing, because our whole lives we've known to like worship these idols. So Amita's going to talk about the kind of strangers that like were present in the beginning. Yeah. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he mentions in the Quran that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, he's a role model for us. وَلَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ. That in him is like a prime example for who you are supposed to be. And subhanAllah, when you look at the seerah of the Prophet, there's nothing in his life that we usually go through that he didn't go through as well. He lost family members, he lost kids, he lost wives. He went through basically everything. But if you look at who the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was before he got Islam. So before the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ received the revelation for Islam, he was known as as-Sadiq al-Amin, the truthful, the most trustworthy. So people used to leave their money with the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ when they used to travel. They used to literally trust him with anything A to Z. then the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ received the wahi. And there's even an ayah in the Quran that says, like, you're going to disbelieve of a man who only says that there's one God. That was the only thing that differentiated the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ with everyone else. And the minute that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ came with this concept of tawheed, came with this concept of there only being one ilah, that's when his life literally changed. And I don't think there's any more of a prime example of someone being a stranger than the story of the Prophet, because he went from being a sadiq al-amin, to being the most trustworthy, the most truthful, to being a person who was called sahir, who was called kadhab. He was called a sha'ir, a poet who was making up lies. He was called a sorcerer, a magician, everything you could possibly think of. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ went from being someone who was honored within the eyes of society, people would look up to him and, always turn to him, to being someone who he used to pray in front of the Kaaba, and they used to take the inside, the guts of a camel. Yani imagine the intestines and the stomach, everything bloody, and they threw it on the back of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ that it was so heavy he couldn't even get up. He went from being that person who was known to being a person who was trashed and ridiculed within the eyes of society. And when you look at the hardship that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ went through, it's going to be nothing compared to the hardship that we had to go through. He was put into concentration camps during the time of Abyssinia with his wives, and that's how Sitta Khadija, she died from hunger and all of that. So the struggle that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ went to, he was a stranger because of this one word of La ilaha illallah. And similarly, right now in our lives, we are strangers because of the tawheed, because of the kalima of La ilaha illallah. But it's also a kalima that unites us. It's the kalima that if you die upon it, you're guaranteed Jannah. And it's the kalima that allows us to be one Muslim body, one Muslim ummah, that if one part of us hurts, the other part of us hurts. So yeah, we are strangers, but we're not strangers by ourselves, because there are other strangers out there. And when you unite with the other strangers, it creates a source of strength and unity among the Muslim ummah. And that's why Islam is a religion that focuses a lot on unity and bringing together the Muslim ummah, not causing problems between people as well.
Exactly. There's a sweetness to La ilaha illallah, because people from all over the world, different hobbies, different ideas and stuff, they all unite for this one kalima. And it's just like beautiful, because you see the masajid full on Ramadan, on Jama'ah Salah. You're like on the street, you see hijabi, you say assalamu alaikum, you see, like, it's just like beautiful, because anywhere you go, like, there's gonna be a bond with anyone that's Muslim because of that, because of the phrase that you share with them.
Yeah. Even like Prophet Musa, when you look at the story of Prophet Musa, when he was going back to Fir'aun, he literally told Allah, like, I'm scared, like, I'm different, I actually killed someone, they're not good, like, I'm coming with a phrase that's different, especially when you're going to a guy who has brainwashed everyone to thinking that he is Rabbukum al-A'la, he is God, and you're not coming and telling them to worship like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Of course it's going to be hard, there's going to be hardship and trials, but what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells him, he says, don't be scared, I'm with you, I see and hear what's going on. So similarly, no matter what position we're in our lives, Allah's as-Sami' and Allah's al-Basir and al-Alim and al-Hakim. He knows, he hears what you're going on, he knows what's happening, and he sees you. And there's another beautiful hadith that it kind of correlates with this, that it says that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says that there's nothing that my servant does that I love more than the obligatory stuff. So like obligatory salah, obligatory fast, but then he continues to get closer to me with things that I have made extra, so like sunnahs, so like sunnah prayers, sunnah fasts, until I become the eyes with which they see, the ears with which they hear, and the arms with which they touch, and the feet with which they walk. Not literally, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't actually become that, but it's figuratively, in the sense that Allah's with you. So when you're a stranger, it's essentially because of this kalima of La ilaha illallah, because of tawheed. But when you perfect that strangeness of being a person upon tawheed and upon the kalima of La ilaha illallah, as in you're coming with the religion of Allah, you're getting this hadith where Allah is going to become the eyes and ears with which you hear and see. But also at the same time, Allah, when he told Musa, giving this reassurance that I'm with you, I see what you see and I hear what you hear. So it's like a correlation between the two. Does that make sense?
No, that's
so subhanAllah, like it's the kalima that brings us to strangeness, but it's also the kalima of La ilaha illallah that unites us and brings us the closeness to Allah.
Yeah, and there's also a verse in the Quran, Surah Hadith, like وَهُوَ مَعَكُمْ أَيْنَمَا كُنْتُمْ. So he's with you wherever you are. So if you're feeling a stranger in this dunya, just remember there's always the one, which is the most important, who's on, like, by your side, who's right next to you, holding your hand basically through everything you're going through. And you're gonna get rewarded for everything you're doing for the sake of Allah. Like whenever you give up something for the sake of Allah, Allah gives you something even better. So if you find yourself being a stranger from, let's say, what you're wearing, like let's say you're wearing an abaya and a hijab, and then you don't see many of those people around you, you feel out of place, you feel uncomfortable, but you're getting so much rewards for that. If you want to grow your lihya, wear a thob, be more modest, you're gonna get rewarded for that. Yeah, you're gonna look like a stranger, but like it's better to be a stranger to the creation than the creator. So just, it's like about perspective. Try to keep in mind, like, whatever you're doing is because of, exactly what Mira said, the kalima la ilaha illallah. And since you're giving up certain things, let's say you're giving up the way you like to dress because for la ilaha illallah, you're gonna get so much reward, and you're gonna get those glad tidings, and the glad tidings is Jannah, inshallah.
This reminds me of two things. Similarly, like when you said this, the ayah in Surah Al-Hadith, where it says like that Allah is with you wherever you go, reminds me of a story when the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, when he first started to like bring the kalima and like bring the deen of Islam, when people were against him and they were like they basically plotted to kill the Prophet. So Allah gave him the revelation that they're going to kill you. So they planned out a plan where the Prophet would run away from the city of Mecca for a couple of days at night. And one person went with him, which was Abu Bakr. And when they were running away, they got to a cave and they hid in this cave, basically waiting until like stuff got a little bit better in Mecca to return. And there was people who came after the Prophet to try to find them. And the cave is a specific kind of cave that if you go above it, it's like on a mountain, and you look down, you can see what's in the cave. Does that make sense? So like the cave has like a hole in the ceiling. So the people who were running after the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ and Abu Bakr, they actually went up, and Abu Bakr got really scared, because if they just look down, they're going to see the Prophet and Abu Bakr, and they would kill him right away. So Abu Bakr, he turned to the Prophet and he told them that he's scared. And he said, Abu Bakr was saying, or the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was saying, how can you be scared when we're two people, but the third of us is Allah? The third person that's with us is Allah. And he said, لا تحزن إن الله معنا يسمعنا ويرانا, or either يرانا ويسمعنا, something like that, where like he's like, don't be scared, Allah is with us, He hears and He sees us. And kind of going back to this concept of like hearing and seeing, that Allah is with us, and like you were saying, the kalima and everything. So it's like when we're put in these situations like you're saying where we feel uncomfortable, we have to look at, it's not just us, it's people in the past. It's not a new thing, like you were saying, the hadith thing. It was something that's going to strange, and it's going to become something that's going to be strange again. And the scholars, they explain this hadith to say, like, it gives two situations. So it says Islam was something was strange, and it's going to become something that's strange again. So that means that in between the two, there was a period where Islam was not strange, right? So that period was after the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, when there was a bunch of Muslimin, before he passed away. Islam became, for a couple years, a couple centuries, aslan, was the norm. Now we've gotten to a point where Islam is strange again. But the scholars say that, so just like how Islam was something that was strange, and then it became normal, and now it's strange again, that this hadith, it obligates, or it kind of shows that there's going to be a time period where it's going to have to be going back to its normal again. And that's actually one of the signs of Yawm al-Qiyamah. And it should give us glad tidings and a little bit more patience that there's gonna get to a time, Allahu A'lam, if it's when we're alive or after us, where Islam is going to become normalized again. And we know Palestine is going to go back to the Muslimin. That's also a sign. Why would that happen unless Islam becomes something that's normal again? So you never know. Maybe right now we have to enforce Islam upon us and bite on our tongues and step on our souls to try as hard as we can, do jihad al-nafs, which of course is very honorable. Like, we can't do physical jihad right now, but jihad al-nafs is also a form of jihad, and it's very honorable to be able to maybe be from this community that allows Islam to become something normalized again,
Yeah. I also think it's important to note that, like, just because, like, let's say a struggle you're, like, giving up for the sake of Allah might be, like, small, it's not insignificant. So whatever you're struggling with, like, anything to become the stranger, it can be big or so small, and Allah's giving you so much reward for it, and it's paying off. It's going to be, like, beneficial for your akhirah and for the dunya as well, like, making Islam easier for everyone else to practice. So if you think something that you're struggling with is, like, so stupid and little, then there's, like, no point to, like, worry about. Like, bil'akis, like, it's so important. Like, that's important. The small struggles you take every single day, you're getting so much rewards for it, and Allah knows how much, like, of a struggle it is for you.
And Allah doesn't reward the equivalent, He rewards more. So your struggle, Allah's not going to reward you equivalent to your struggle. He's going to reward you even more. And you mentioned the good concept. sometimes you might be struggling with something and you try so hard to do it, and you might be the only one in your community doing it, but you don't know what other girl or what other guy you are inspiring.
Exactly.
You are like a role model to them, that because you did it, they're gonna end up doing it. So it becomes like a sadaqah.
100%.
Anyways, so it's like, push yourself. You never know who you're gonna influence. And like we said, we are gonna be, inshallah, you never know, Allahu A'lam, but we might be the generation that makes Islam normalized again. So how can we do that if we don't know Islam?
Exactly. Use it as like giving da'wah. Like, let's say you're a young man, you want to wear a thawb out in public, and you're doing it for the sake of course, obeying Allah, like, you know, being modest and whatnot, but you also want to spread ibadah. You raise questions. Someone stops you and asks you, oh, like, what is it you're wearing? And you explain to them. Like, little things like that, like spreading da'wah on a daily basis, like, literally will go so far, like, you don't even know. And I also want to say, just be careful. Like, let's say you want to, of course, embrace being a stranger, but don't, like, be careful from pride. And don't be looking at other people like, yeah, you're a stranger in this dunya, and you're doing the commands of Allah, how He obeys you, how you should obey Him. But don't look at other people as if they're nothing or they're super little, because we should not have an ounce of kibr in our hearts. So if we're obeying Allah's commands, alhamdulillah, Allah guided us on the straight path, but we're looking down on others, that's completely defeating the purpose of what we're trying to do as being like good Muslims.
That's actually a really good point, you know, because like the characteristic of us being a stranger is from Allah, and we're talking about the virtue of being it. So how can we look down upon, yani we should see it as an honor aslan. Like, we see being a stranger as something that's a hardship, but we need to change our perspective. Like the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ always used to see every single thing from a positive perspective. Even during times of great hardship, when people would ridicule him, he would always smile. He wouldn't say anything. So instead of seeing this being us as strangers, like, oh, my life is so hard, Islam is so hard, why don't we see it as an opportunity to attain Jannah? And like you said, we can't abuse this opportunity and have pride and arrogance, because that's only a characteristic that's befitting to Allah, not for the creation.
Exactly. There's a hadith where it goes, anyone who possesses a speck of pride in his heart will not enter paradise. So just keep in mind, like, as you're on your journey to become a better Muslim, other Muslimin are on that same journey, just maybe not the same level as you. And if you like criticize them, or like you're like showing that you think you're a bigger person than them or whatnot, you're gonna actually push them away from the religion, and that's like the worst thing you could do. So keep in mind, like, be mindful whenever you're practicing Islam, giving da'wah, there's a way to give it, and it's important to give it as humbly as possible, and of course, like,
as respectfully as possible. Even like you said, like, if you're someone who's trying to implement the deen as much to the point where you're starting to become like a stranger, like if a girl's wearing a abaya or a guy's wearing like a thawb, people are you're starting to represent Islam like on steroids, like even more than a person who just wears the hijab, or just a person who grows out his beard, because now you're actually like more of a physically walking symbol of Islam. So people, both Muslim and non-Muslim, are going to be looking at your character. So imagine the impression that you're giving to someone if you're wearing a full-on thawb and a beard or a abaya, but you're having arrogance, you're not treating people with respect. That's no longer Muslim manners, you know. Like, you have to, you can't go to one extreme and completely disregard another aspect of Islam.
Also, since we take the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ as an example, another thing that he would do is when he would see like fitna in his society, he wouldn't like look down upon them and curse them, whatnot. What he would say actually is, "My Lord, forgive my people, for they do not know." So instead of like having this gibr, shayfin halkum, like over people, say this, like, say, "My Lord, forgive my people, for they do not know." Make dua for them so Allah can forgive them and keep you on the straight path, because you never know like where you could end up. You could end up being misguided just like them.
This reminds me of a scary hadith where the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, he says, like, you'll never look down upon someone for something or criticize or ridicule someone for something except that you'll die doing that thing, or you won't die before that you do that thing. So like, if we are making fun of people for not being Muslimin or for doing something that's haram, you don't think Allah's gonna, like, you're making fun of them, you're not seeing the blessing that Allah saved you from it. So this hadith, Sadaqa Rasulullah, like, you're gonna end up doing that same thing just because of the kibriyat that you had, you know, against that one person. Also, a lot of times, like, Lina, you mentioned a good point from before, it's important to remember that there's more than one different kind of stranger. So we've been talking about stranger as in mainly, like, I guess Muslim to non-Muslim, like we're a stranger to non-Muslimin, but you're also going to be a stranger between Muslim to Muslim. So like, me as a Muslim, you as a Muslim, we might be a stranger to another person who's Muslim. Imek min, like Shia, Sunni, and all of that stuff. We're talking about even like our Muslims, like the people that we know around us, we're going to be a stranger. And we have to learn how to combat that, because even the closest people to you might be the most toxic or might be the most harmful people. And we see that with the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Like even the Prophet, like his uncle, or who was it, his uncle or his grandfather, he never believed. Like it would be the closest people to him that would hurt him, and it would get you to the most. And we see that with the story of the prophets. We see that, like, for example, Nuh and his son never amen. So you're gonna see people close to you, even like you were saying, you might walk out the house wearing a thobe. Your parents might be like, why are you wearing a thobe? You're being extreme. But know that, like you were saying, everything in this world was created by Allah. So, and it kind of goes to this concept that everyone will always be a stranger. There's never going to be a point in time in your life where you will never be a stranger. I'll give you an example. For example, if you walk into an Indian restaurant, okay, everyone in this restaurant is Indian, okay. You walk in for wearing a hijab or like abaya, or like you're like wearing like traditional Arabian clothes, and everyone in there is Indian. You don't think you're going to feel weird? I don't know, personally I would probably feel weird to the point where I would just leave. Or for example, even if you walk into like another room that's filled with another people of a completely different tradition, they're all like, for example, let's say they're all Yemeni, and then I walk in and I'm like Lebanese, like pure on Lebanese tradition, like I'm gonna feel awkward. So you're always gonna be put in situations in your life where you're gonna feel like a stranger, even aside from religion. So then, like, kind of comparing this to the Deen of Islam, you're always gonna be a stranger. So like you were saying, Nina, why not be a stranger to the people but not be a stranger to Allah? Because there's nothing more scary than when you're a stranger to your Creator. That's like you being a stranger to your own parents. Your parents don't even know who you are anymore. And you might even get to a point. That's what we're trying to say. You might be a stranger within your own family. But Allah, who loves you more than you could ever imagine. And there were companions who used to ask. There was one companion who was asked, who would you want to judge you on the Day of Judgment? Your mom or Allah? He said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because He's going to be more just than my own mom. Because your parents might sometimes be against things that you're doing. But لا طاعة لمخلوق في معصية الخالق. If you are doing something that is upon the true religion of Islam, Allah, there's no disobedience to the Creator for the pleasure of the creation. And know that the land with which you walk on, the trees with which you lean on, and the air with which you breathe supports your Islam, supports your strangeness, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created it. And we know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says everything that He created is in worship. The animals, the little cat that you see walking on the side of the road, everything is upon the same strangeness that you are. So it's not actually you who are the stranger, it's those who make us feel like a stranger that are the actual strangers. It's those that don't follow Islam that should feel like a stranger, because this whole world is submitting to the kalima of La ilaha illallah, and we are in unity with the world. We are not in unity with what's opposite, And even Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says in the Quran, like that the earth wishes to basically crack itself in half out of the anger upon the statement of the Christians that say that Isa is the son of Allah. That's how serious it is. So you don't think that this same earth is not going to welcome you as a stranger when you're saying La ilaha illallah, compared to a friend next to you who's saying Masih ibn Allah, astaghfirullah, or a person who doesn't follow the Deen of Islam. This whole world is in unity with you. You're not the stranger, it's everyone else who's the stranger.
That's beautiful. So we talked a lot about being a stranger in this dunya, and some of the times we might be a stranger to our own family, our own friends. But let's try our best. If we're a stranger to our friends, let's ask ourselves, why are we a stranger to them? Do they not carry the same beliefs and same morals as us? So if they don't, if you constantly feel uncomfortable or like a stranger to them, or you're saying, oh, let's go pray, and they're like, what do you do? Like, why are you praying now?
You're compromising on
Exactly.
your religion. Then
you know what? Leave those friends. Those friends aren't good for you. It's better to have no friends and continue on the straight path than to have a bunch of friends who have a negative impact on you. And there's a verse in Surah Hadith. Basically, Surah Hadith talks about the hypocrite men and the hypocrite women asking for the believers for some of their light on the Day of Judgment. So there's going to be light on the Day of Judgment, which basically eases their path for them.
It's from your good deeds, all the good deeds that you did.
So the hypocrite men and women will basically say, wait for us that we may acquire some of your light. So they're telling that to the believers. These are the hypocrites. And then the believers tell them, go back behind you and seek light. So basically, go back behind you in this world, in the dunya, and seek the light. As you guys, you're
trying to take our light.
Exactly. You basically mocked us and whatnot. And then a wall will be placed between them with a door. Its interior containing mercy, which is with the believers, but on the outside of it is torment. So the torment is what the hypocrites will face, and they'll be asking the believers, were we not with you? Were we not with you in this dunya and whatnot? Maybe they were with you, maybe they were in your circle, but they weren't practicing what you were practicing. They weren't getting up to go pray and being really consistent on the shahada. So it's important to just know who you're surrounding yourself with, and don't like mistaken yourself. Don't forsake yourself with these bad friends, because at the end of the day, they're gonna cause you a lot of pain and suffering in the akhirah.
This also reminds me of like the episode that we did about like friends and like the influence of friends. So if you didn't listen to it, make sure you guys go back and listen to it. But we talked about the concept of like a sahib. So like your friends, they're gonna have a lot of influence with you because naturally you're spending a lot of time with them. And it was also like, there's a hadith, it's kind of a little bit scary in this realm, I guess, when we're talking about it. But it basically says that like يحشر المرء مع من يحب, like you're gonna be resurrected on the day of judgment with the people that you love the most, the people that you spend the most time with. So like, are you sure that you want to be in a state on the day of judgment when the sun is a mile above our heads and you're going to be weighed according to your actions? Are you sure you're going to be wanting to stay like next to someone who doesn't salli? Like, what is the state of that person going to be on the day of judgment? And like, I know a lot of us a lot of times will be like, oh, I'll be the good one in my friend group to change us, but they're going to change a lot from you, and you don't want to put yourself and your deen in that sort of a compromise. And I feel like there's a concept that we have to be more familiar and comfortable with. I think a lot of us are scared to be alone, but we have to get more comfortable with being by ourselves, because when you're by yourself, you're actually with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if you don't feel comfortable being alone with Allah, how are you going to be standing before Him on the day of judgment? You have to get comfortable with just being you and Allah, and that's what creates this closeness and connection to Allah. So honestly, for me, it makes more sense for me to be by myself than to be with people who are compromising my deen. So like, pay really close attention to that, and that's what eases into the concept of being a stranger. Because if you're a stranger but your whole friend group is a stranger, then it's easier, because you know there's people with you, there's people upon the right deen with you as well. And like, we were going back to the point of saying like, we need to be this new group that inshallah makes Islam no longer something that is strange.
Exactly, be that change.
And then kind of to end us off and kind of get us a little bit full circle, a lot of times the biggest influence is the people around you, which is normal, but they'll tell you, don't do this, stop. Like, they'll try to influence you to come back to what they're doing. And there's a new concept that's been going around, be like, oh, I'll be like an intercessor for you on the day of judgment in front of Allah, or like, I'll carry your sins. And I know my mom's been telling me, like, a lot of people keep on saying it. And it brings to mind 2 ayahs from Surah Al-Ankabut, where it says, and those who disbelieve say to those who believe, follow our way and we will carry your sins. But they will not carry anything of their sins. Indeed, they are liars. But they will surely carry their own burdens and other burdens along with their burdens. And they will surely be questioned on the day of resurrection about what they used to invent. So in the end, there's a ayah that comes to mind, وَلَنَا أَعْمَالُنَا وَلَكُمْ أَعْمَالُكُمْ. Like, people, even it might be your own close family members, they might tell you to do something to change a habit that you're doing. On the day of judgment, everyone's going to be held accountable for their own actions. Allah's not going to ask you, why did you listen to what this person told you? He's going to say, I gave you a mind, I gave you the truth, you had both, and you chose to still listen to them. So it's going to be hard, but when you look back at the stories of the Prophet and Prophet Musa and Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, and even all the prophets, they were all strangers. And like we said, you're a stranger to the people, but you're not a stranger to Allah. And know that you're not the only one. So surround yourself with people who are supportive, who are upon the same path upon you. And even know that the ground that which you walk on supports you. But you can't listen to these other people if it's against what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling you. Because on the day of judgment, you're going to be held accountable for your own actions, not their actions. So it's really important to make our own decisions to save ourselves. And the hadith, where it mentions that there's a paradise in this world and a paradise in the hereafter. And you have to enter into the paradise of this world to enter into the paradise of the hereafter. And what essentially is the paradise of this world? It's not ease it's not ease and happiness, because you'll never truly be happy in this world. But it's that contentment that you get through the trials and the tribulation that you get, when that pain becomes something that's sweet, and that jihad and nafs and that jihad against the society and that which is haram becomes something that you don't enjoy in the sense where it's like, oh, I love the struggle, but it's like you understand the value and the honor that comes with that struggle in the sight of Allah.
Exactly. The next time you're feeling like uncomfortable or out of place or just like discouraged, just remember this hadith, and you'll feel so much more at ease, and you'll see the bigger picture and like be committed and determined for the end goal, which is Jannah, inshallah.
Exactly. فَطُوبَى لِلْغُرَبَاء. So glad tidings, i.e. Tuba, which we said means tree in paradise. لِلْغُرَبَاء. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is promising you. And of course, with being a stranger, you have to endure patience. So make sure you listen to our whole episode that we did on the value of patience and the reward that comes with patience as well. Because you are amongst a group of people who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says He loves. And what more reassurance do you want? That Allah hears you and He sees you and He is with you the whole time. He supports you and He loves you.
He's with you the whole entire time.
Subhanallah. طيب, that's it for this week's episode, and we'll see you guys inshallah next week. Assalamu
Thanks.
alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.